Hi everybody, I'm Alan Adams. I'm the Assistant Professor of Finance at Dean College, and this is Business 325 Online for the summer of 2017. And this is an introductory video to get us started on Chapter 1. I'll be doing several of these videos throughout our semester to try to take the place of the fact that we can't do a face-to-face physical contact. But hopefully this and your online studies, with which I assume you're accustomed by now, will be a close second. Okay, I have here on the screen that you should see right about here, if I've got my orientation right, to my this would be my upper right, your upper left, is my slideshow for Chapter 1. I will not walk you through the entire thing because, number one, it's very introductory, and secondly, I do have to skim it because a lot of this is, of course, self-study. Okay, so just to walk you through it very, very quickly, I'm introducing finance as what I consider a hybrid, as I note in the book, between accounting and finance. All of you have taken accounting, I'm sorry, between accounting and economics, I stand corrected. And by now, all of you have taken accounting, and you understand that the rules of GAAP are what govern, the body of knowledge that govern how we produce a set of financial statements, okay? It's all done based on the accrual method. We're going to, for the most part, abandon that in this course because this course is more about cash flow, okay? This course is about money, and the beautiful thing about this course, this topic, is that, and by the way, I do love accounting, I love to teach accounting, but the thing about this course is it incorporates a lot of attributes that affect not only corporate and business finance, which is the thrust of this course, but personal money management aspects as well, okay? You can sit there and in front of your computer or with a handheld financial calculator and do many of these calculations that will explore with technology helping you out, but you really need to understand what is happening in order to know, to be a financial professional, to know what that computer is telling you, and secondly, to interpret that data for financial management in its truest and most useful sense, okay? Something that will help you out individually as well as your role in professional business management, okay? We talk about things like capital structure, which I've highlighted on this slide, which simply means you have to know how to mix spending your own money versus other people's money, OPM, other people's money. In other words, you can borrow or you can fund something yourself. A good financial manager knows how to do a combination of both, okay? So I'm going to skip on here. Of course, I go on in the book to indicate some of the things in recent history that happened. In the 1990s, if you were invested, you couldn't help but make money. It was a wonderful time for everybody, especially if you were into technology. And then, of course, the dot-com companies, not to generalize, but they ran into some real problems early in the 21st century, coupled with the fact that a couple of bad people in very high places and organizations, publicly traded companies, were doing some not so nice things. They were misleading shareholders, and people were losing confidence in the markets, the stock market, the equity market as a result, and there had to be massive reform, which came in the form of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. I mentioned this in the chapter. We call it SARBOX or SOX, S-O-X for short, which led to reforms to restore public confidence in the equity markets. And then, of course, in 2007, 2008, 2009, we had some other crises involving, let's say, people spending money they didn't have to buy things they couldn't afford. It led to a massive credit crisis, which led to the downfall of a couple of very long-lived and prestigious Wall Street firms, okay? Now, all of these things I mentioned because what's the solution? There is no magical solution, but to let yourself fall on the side of success, to err on the side of caution, comes understanding, as I note here, okay? One of the principal aspects of this course is understanding your money. Please note my epigram at the start of the chapter. Susie Orman, a wonderful, wonderful financial advisor, very popular in the media, said, when it comes to money, a lot of people are in the dark, and my job is to turn on the lights, okay? So I'm trying to follow in her spirit to the best ability that I can. I go on to mention on pages 2 and 3 in chapter 1. 5 general principles of finance. These are my principles. I did not invent these. I stole them. I spend a lot of time researching people who have done this forever. Some people say there are really only 3. Other people say there are 10. Okay, by looking at all of the folks and vetting their results of extensive research, I've narrowed it down to these 5. Your money has a time value. In other words, if I loan you $1,000 today and you repay me a year from now, we expect you to pay me a little bit more because the loss of that money comes at a cost to me. I could have been investing that money and making money on my money. Okay? So the absence of that money in my hands comes at a cost, and the presence of that money in your hands is a benefit. Okay? We always in finance have to consider the time value of money. Number 2, risk and return. If you take on more risk when you invest, you expect to make more money. And you can phrase it the other way. If you want to make more money, then you can usually assume you'll have to take on more risk. Okay, so risk and return are like the Siamese twins of finance, if not business in general. Number 3, the markets are efficient. We assume that all information about companies in which you invest is known to the public. If you invest knowing something that isn't available to me, that's unfair to me, it has to be available to me, then you've basically done something wrong, and that can have, there can be very negative aspects to that. I dare say the least of which is a criminal act, okay? So please remember that insider trading, taking advantage of the markets is not allowed, and markets therefore are presumed to be efficient, and all data is reflected in the price of investments. Okay, more on that later. Number 4, we've been brought up to in accounting to believe that the accrual basis and GAAP, GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, are the way to go. In finance, you can't consider profit, and profit is based on GAAP. It's based on the accrual method. Okay, you have to consider cash flow with equal importance. If I sell to you on credit, okay, GAAP says as soon as I make that sale, I have to record it. I record the revenues. I've earned them. It doesn't mean I've collected my money from you because I agree to give you 30 days to pay me. Okay? So if I never collect that, if I never have cash flow resulting from your sale, my business, in spite of having revenue and profit, is going to die. Okay? So you must have profitability, of course, but you must have cash flow. We call it liquidity as well. So number 4, in this course, we never consider profits without considering cash flow. Lastly, number 5, in business study these days, we always have to consider the impact of ethics, okay? I do not want to invest in any company that does not maintain a strong ethical and moral fiber. And of course, technology goes hand in hand with that because things happen at the speed of nanotechnology these days, okay? So those 5 principles will permeate our studies. All right. I go on in the chapter to talk about the agency problem. Please read that on your own. Please remember that as a manager, your ultimate goal is to maximize shareholder wealth. Okay? Let's call it value. We are out there to maximize shareholder value. If you are a manager, that is the philosophy to which you have to stay true. Okay, please read about that in the book. Okay, I go on to warn about the dangers of GAAP and accounting income versus real wealth, and I give you an example that illustrates my 5 principles when it comes to maximizing shareholder value. Okay, if I'm a shareholder in a company, I don't just want to see GAAP income, I want to see when my cash flows will happen. I would much rather have a $10,000 cash return 1 year from now than I would 5 years from now. Number 2, I want to make sure that the company I invest in has awareness of avoiding risk. Human beings by nature are averse to risk, so if you do take on risk, you want to be compensated for it. Okay, so this is an example of how my 5 principles relate to investing in a company. Number 3, understand the efficient market. We want to understand that the price of stock that I invest in reflects all information about that company. No secrets allowed. Okay? Number 4, cash flow versus profit. Yes, in accounting, we learned how to read financial statements. I want to know how to interpret those financial statements, but I also want to know more than that. I want to know when the cash flow will happen, because profit is a smoke and mirrors type of number. And lastly, when I invest in a company, I want to make sure that I'm investing in a company whose management epitomizes ethical behavior. Okay? All right, so those are a couple of tips, and as you can already see, I'm emphasizing investing because we want to learn how to invest in companies as we go. And I'll elaborate upon that a little bit more in our upcoming lectures together. Okay? I go on it in the chapter. I'm not going to belabor this with you by video, but I want you to review the forms of organization. You learned in other courses that when you form a company, you can do it in one of 10, 11, 12 different ways. I picked the four most common and elaborate on their advantages and disadvantages. Please make sure you review that for me, okay? All right, what else? Let me go on here. Okay. We focus on corporations. In this book, I'm going to focus on corporations for the most part. I then go on to talk about corporate governance. You will recognize in this picture probably Michael Douglas in the role of Gordon Gekko, not a very nice guy. But he is the kind of person, he is a corporate raider, and to me he symbolizes some of the negative things that can happen in a corporation, emphasizing that you always want to be aware of your rights as a shareholder. When you're the owner of shares in a corporation, you are indeed an owner. You can't walk in like Donald Trump and start saying you're hired, you're fired, this is how to do this, I'm going to give you a raise. No, you can't do that. But in corporate governance, as I illustrate in the book, which I believe you've seen before, this is on page 10, you are represented by a board of directors, and the board of directors watches over as your eyes, ears, and mouth. They watch over the officers of the company to make sure that they are flying right. So please be aware of your rights as a shareholder in a corporation. Okay? Finally, in the book, I talk about the three functions of money. Money basically not to be confused with wealth or income. Income is a flow to you, like when you go out and earn wages. Wealth is how much of those wages you build up. That's the number you want to watch individually. You want to watch your wealth and always be accumulating, okay? And money is one of the ways that we represent that wealth. Money basically would not exist in a barter society, okay, where we trade something for something, and that's very inefficient, as I'll go on to explain, okay? Money eliminates the need for barter. Money serves as a medium of exchange, a unit of account, and a store of value. And if I run out of time, because if I let these video lectures get too long, the file gets too large and I can't post it, okay? So I'm going to watch that for you. All right. So starting with the medium of exchange, barter doesn't work because of two problems. Number one, coincidence of wants. That means that if we're in a barter system, I have to make sure that something I have that's available to trade is something that you want, and that something you have is something that I want. Okay, we have to establish that, or with a third or a fourth or a fifth or a 35th person before barter can work. Okay, and secondly, transaction costs, because if I have something to offer and I can't find you, it takes me 2 or 3 days to find you before we establish that I've got something you want and you have something I want. Now I've wasted several days, and that costs money. Time is money, of course. So in an advanced society, barter does not work because of those two things. Okay? I go on to give you an example in the book of 3 people. I teach finance. I teach my courses. That's what I have to offer. I have a gentleman named Roy who raises horses, and a woman named Susan who grows vegetables, okay? Please read the next several slides to see how that leads to problems, okay? I need some vegetables. I will teach Susan in trade for some vegetables, but what if she doesn't want my course? Now we have to find the third person, in this case Roy, who does want my course, and fortunately she wants his horse, but here it comes, transaction costs. It took me a week to find not one, but 2 of these people, and to make sure we reconcile what each of us want and need, okay? So we expend transaction costs to reconcile the coincidence of our wants. Okay, right away we're seeing this is inefficient. Okay, so for the next several slides, we talk about what happens if one person doesn't want what the other has to offer. Okay, and we can reduce that down to this equation. Okay, N is going to be the number of people with a commodity in a barter system, N. Okay, so the number of people in that system with something to offer, vegetables rather, horses, or finance courses, would be N times N minus 1 over 2. Okay? That equation is how you find the number of relationships that have to exist in a barter system. If there were just 3 of us, it's not so bad. 4 of us, it gets worse. It's not 4 relationships, but 6. 5 of us, there are 10 of them. That's where that equation comes in. Okay? So there's a little illustration there to go along with what is in the book, illustrated on page 13. Okay, if there were just 3, there were 3 relationships, pure and simple. If there are 4, it's not just a square. You also have to connect with diagonals, myself to Susan and Bonnie to Roy. Okay, so there are 6, not 4. If there are 5 of us, it's not 5 relationships, but 10. And that's where that N times N minus 1 divided by 2 comes in. If there are 1,000 different goods and or people with them, like in a supermarket, that would be 499,000 different relationships and prices. Okay? Does a barter system work in a progressive society? No, it does not, for the reasons I've just illustrated. Okay? All right, I hope you found that helpful. Also, money is a unit of account. It allows us to go into a supermarket and say, this is how much I have to spend for a loaf of bread, a gallon of milk, a box of Twinkies, whatever. Okay, it is worth $2, $3.50, 75 cents, whatever. And thirdly, money is a store of value. This is very important to remember. Money stores value, but only for the short term, because inflation always exists, except in a utopian society. Okay? Inflation happens to be low right now in my lifetime. In the late 70s, inflation was drastically high. Okay? So you always have to remember, money is a store of value from here on payday until next Monday when I go shopping, the short term. The long term, no. Okay? That's why we never hoard cash, because if I take $1,000 today and put it away, and then a year from now, take it out of my safe, it will buy me fewer goods in an inflationary time. That's what I mean by a store of value. It only works for the short term. Okay? All right, very good. Those are the highlights of Chapter 1, and that is my introductory lecture. My time has just elapsed, so I'm going to post this lecture, and you may get to me anytime at all with any questions. And I look forward to having more discussion with you. Please keep up on these lectures and all our postings, and have yourself a good day. Bye-bye.